365 Radio, 365 Sports. We're now joined by the voice of West Virginia athletics, Tony Caridi. He joins us on the show today. Tony, thank you. How emotional is this week with Pitt, West Virginia back at it?
It is extremely emotional. People have been anxiously looking forward to this game since it was announced that the series would be renewed. It will be 11 years since these two teams played, and that marks obviously West Virginia's entry into the Big 12 Conference. So, guys, they're talking about the potential that this could be the all-time attendance record in what is now Acrisure Stadium. They're potentially talking about up to 70,000 people, and you think about all the great games that facility has hosted. So there's certainly a great deal of excitement, really, on both sides.
Tony, is there a feeling that this will help renew the rivalry? I know that cross-conference makes it a lot harder, but to make it to where it's not every 4 years, every 8 years, every 10 years.
Yeah, they've agreed to play, I believe it's 8 out of the next 10 years. So I think that's trending to happening, and why not, right? We'll sell it out here in Morgantown next year when they return the game. Obviously, it's a sellout. It's only 75 miles. I think that some people, that aren't totally familiar with the geography might be surprised, but it's only 75 miles from Morgantown to Pittsburgh. And the tradition, this will be the 105th meeting between these two schools. It amps people up, and it's one of two really great rivalries that West Virginia has. The other is for the folks down in the southern portion of the state, and that's Virginia Tech, and West Virginia will play there later in the month of September. So on the road for both of these games, super big challenge to play two Power Fives non-conference on the road, but those are the cards, and we'll see how it all plays out.
Tony, I know this is kind of a vague sort of general question and sort of eye of the beholder as well, but if there were a major consent, or I guess a majority opinion on expectations for the Mountaineers this year, where do you think the range would be for that general opinion on what the expectations are?
We do a talk show here statewide, and on Sunday they had their prediction show, and they solicited 188 predictions. And the consensus down to the decimal was 6.94 wins. That was the prediction. So obviously that's not a scientific poll, guys, but that's the window that they're looking at. And I think folks are understanding that, again, is not to belabor the point, but West Virginia is one of two teams in Power Five that will play 11 Power Five games this year, and the two additional games that they're playing outside of league are both on the road. So I think people are kind of looking at that and understanding what that challenge is.
JT Daniels, Graham Harrell, the offense obviously looking for a kickstart. What has been the reaction to their arrival and how they have meshed together?
I think people are excited because the fact is that offensively, West Virginia really has not had a consistent identity as to who they are offensively in Neal's first 3 years. And I think that there is a general excitement based on Graham's brand and JT Daniels' pedigree as a five-star that things could change quickly. And so I think there's a great deal of excitement. And you guys know, unfortunately, in college, you don't get scrimmage games. And so you're going to start to try to run this offense against a really, really talented Pitt defense. Pitt has accumulated the most sacks in the country over the last 3 years. So they will be very, very aggressive. And this offense is going to get tested in its first outing on an extremely aggressive level.
Tony, the way how do you think they fit in the Big 12 this year? Are there teams that you think are getting more hype than they deserve, maybe over West Virginia right now, or do you have to wait and see?
Total wait and see, guys. And by no means am I trying to be or attempting to be evasive. I think you guys would agree that there's tons of question marks. So sure, West Virginia is one of them, but there are several teams in this league that, are question marks. I mean, right where you guys are. I mean, Baylor had a magical season last year. I mean, is that thinkable to do that again in that type of a fashion? It's super hard, right? History says that's super hard to do. And that's not just Baylor, but I'm just talking about a bunch of these teams in this league. Because of the transfer portal, so many new faces, you just really can't do a good job. I don't think as good of a job as we used to be able to do in a preseason to have a formula or an opinion as to really where a team would be good or would not be good. Because, we've got 3-4 guys starting on our defense here on Thursday night that have played a tremendous amount of football, like over 1,000 snaps in their careers, but at different levels. We got a guy from North Dakota State. We got a guy from James Madison, 2 national championship programs. Got a couple of guys from Colorado State. So, like, when the lights turn bright, how do they react? Is this the moment they've been living for to show everyone that, hey, I should have been playing at this level all along? Or were they properly recruited when they came out of college, or came out of high school? So, again, too many unanswerable questions, at least early on in the season. I don't have a good feel.
Tony, JT Daniels named the starter, obviously, but what has kind of been the messaging surrounding him and expectations from Neil Brown and or Graham Harrell?
If I gave you 10 seconds of dead air, that would be the answer.
Okay.
It's been super quiet. It really has. And, here folks there was a little bit of a thing like, well, he hasn't named the starter. He hasn't named the starter. He hasn't named the starter. And I said on my show, I said, yeah, he named the starter in January. Well, the first day that JT Daniels signed, he was the starting quarterback. So there really wasn't any surprise. I think, as you guys know, kids know, players know on their team who the guy is. And I don't think there's any question since the first day he came here. He's the guy. And he's played, albeit he has been injured, but he's played the most football among the other candidates for the job. And there's 3 other guys, that are quality guys. But it was JT Daniels' show. And but for the most part, there has not been a whole lot of, chest pounding or a lot of, hey, wait till you see this or wait till you see that. I think they're in the mode of hopefully under-promising and over-delivering.
Tony, in an off season, and we've seen this now for a couple of summers with the USC, UCLA, and then all of a sudden the spider web of what might happen to conferences, including the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or the ACC or whatever, and then the transfer portal and NIL. How exciting is it? There are games. I know there were a handful this past weekend, but to just get to the games and the schedule.
Yeah, you're right, 1,000%. I was at home Saturday. You flip on, and I saw that Nebraska Northwestern game, and it was in Ireland. And then I watched later on in the day, caught a few other games. Yeah, you're exactly right. It has been the most tumultuous off season that I can remember, and I don't think that's going to stop. I think probably it maybe has paused here for a while. Maybe we do play some games, but it sounds as though there will be more shifting as far as conferences go going forward. The consensus now is that if the Big Ten were to act too quickly now, that it would open itself up for a lawsuit. So maybe now we wait a year or several months down the road before things cool down, so you can't claim collusion or whatever it might be. But I don't think that it's done. I do think that the Big 12, I feel good about the Big 12. We may have talked about this on a past visit. The fact that they did bring in the other 4 schools who are coming in next year, I think gave us the stability in this period of time to at least stay stable, knowing that at worst we're going to be at 12. And I think the Pac-12, they're certainly they're in a bad situation if, in fact, the Big Ten lives through what they're saying and talking about going out west to get more of those schools. And I think that'll be, the fatal blow for them.
What has changed in your role as a play-by-play guy, technology-wise, what you have in front of you, from the spotter boards that you probably did with a pen back in the day to what you now have, the laminated whatever else? How much has that changed?
Oh, about 180 degrees.
Yeah.
I laugh because when I was in school, we would be in there with our oversized 8.5 by 14 manila folders and Sharpie markers.
Yep.
And I had horrible handwriting. And so then I went to PageMaker. And so I used PageMaker to make my charts. And every single week it was just this massive thing, a stress ball. Now I use a guy who most guys use. You may have heard of Tony Britt. He's like the official spotter board guy for all of college football in the NFL. And he sends me a Google Doc. I fill in all my bio notes. He gets the depth chart. He sends me a sheet every week, got everything filled in, updated stats, the whole deal. That's one big thing. And then in game, one of the greatest inventions since fire and the wheel has been stat broadcast. And you guys probably use it, as well. during games, but I mean, every single conceivable stat that you want is available to you in real time during the broadcast. And so I think there have been massive changes. And let me also throw out an absolutely unsolicited plug for the greatest binoculars in the world for football fans. They cost like $80, and I've turned more people onto these things. They're made by Bushnell, and you can go to wherever and get them. Amazon's like $80, and they're called Bushnell Extra Wide. The X is literally an X. So when you put it in, just put X, TRA wide. What they are, guys, is they are low power, wide field view. And so most binoculars are too tight. You can't get the all 22 in. But if you use these, you can see the all 22 sideline to sideline, and you can get about 35 yards horizontally. Greatest binoculars ever in the world.
I'm looking it up. We do games, and that is Bushnell. You said X. Okay, extra wide. Okay,
extra wide, X, yeah. And then TRA wide, and they're life changers. I just keep them on my eyes the entire game, and you can see everything, and it really makes it. And then for fans, and obviously I'm saying that for fans, because if you're sitting there, at your place, you just put those on, and you can see the game really, really well.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Good luck. We'll see you down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Always appreciate it.
Tony Caridi, the voice of West Virginia athletics, on some of the things that have changed even in the business as far as play-by-play as a broadcaster as well. So